Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Is the FBI part of the resistance? That is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. This week we found out that the top FBI agent investigating the Trump campaign, Peter Strzok, despised Donald Trump and was plotting extreme action against him. Here are some text messages between FBI agents. Trump's an idiot. F Trump. Hillary has to win. Trump's election would be terrifying. It's like the FBI had Michael Moore investigating the President of the United States. But it gets worse. The lead agent on Robert Mueller's team investigating Donald Trump agreed that it was his job to protect the country from that menace, Trump. The Trump-hating FBI agent also says there's no way Trump gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. And by the way, this conversation occurred in the office of Andrew McCabe, the FBI's deputy director. This is smoking gun evidence that the FBI agents investigating Donald Trump believed it was their duty to protect the country from his presidency. And they had a plan in place to achieve their goal. Mueller fired this agent late last summer, but the damage was already done. This FBI agent also led the Hillary investigation, had softball Hillary's interview, and helped Comey exonerate her. And we're going to have more on that later in the show. He'd also already led the Trump investigation for a full year and interviewed Mike Flynn without a lawyer present. So the investigation into Donald Trump's campaign has been crooked from the jump. But the scary part is we may now have proof the investigation was weaponized to destroy his presidency for partisan political purposes and to disenfranchise millions of American voters. Now, if that's true, we have a coup on our hands in America. And Congress must force the FBI and the individuals involved to come clean on what counter-espionage agents meant by insurance policy to protect the country from Donald Trump's presidency. Now, the president spoke about the new revelations on Friday.
It is very sad when you look at those documents, and how they've done that is really, really disgraceful. And you have a lot of very angry people that are seeing it. I can say this. When you look at what's gone on with the FBI and with the Justice Department, people are very, very angry.
Joining us now, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, what do you think they mean when they say they need to protect America from Trump and they need to have an insurance policy against his presidency?
There's very little translation needed there. The fix was in against Donald Trump from the beginning, and they were pro-Hillary. We understand people have political views, but they are expressing theirs with such animus and venom towards the now president of the United States. They can't possibly be seen as objective or transparent or even-handed or fair. And this president, as he made the comments you just showed on the South Lawn, he was on his way to the FBI graduation in Quantico, Virginia. He respects and applauds and supports the rank and file of the FBI. But these investigations must be transparent and accountable and done by people who are impartial and fair.
Well, how dangerous do you think it is if you have these people plotting what it appears to be some sort of subversion campaign against the president or the president-elect? How dangerous is that?
Jesse, it's toxic, it's lethal, and it may be fatal to the continuation of people arguing that matter is since behind us, he won, he's the president, and that the Mueller investigation is something separate. But look, Americans need to see the entire process for what it is. And I've noticed people who are trying to cover these latest bombshell revelations about the bias against Donald Trump as a candidate. They're trying to cover it by somehow saying the president is against the FBI. He's trying to shut down the investigation. No, we need to see. His lawyers made clear everybody's complying with that investigation, including the president, who's not under investigation, we're told. Look, everybody should see both sides of the coin here. And the idea that the Federal Bureau of Investigations, that also has a tagline where the I stands for integrity, had people at the highest levels, steps away from the Deputy Attorney General also until recently, that were overtly biased against Donald Trump. And by the way, Jesse, let's be clear, none of us would know any of this had they all had their way and Hillary Clinton had become the president.
And
we wouldn't know any of this.
And not only that, we wouldn't know a lot of this because these texts were handed over under the threat of a subpoena and under the threat of censure. They were keeping these texts secret since this summer. Now, I just want to ask, go ahead, last question real quick on this.
There's another thing going on here. I just saw recently that they were desperately trying to discern who leaked the information about the tarmac meeting between Lynch and Clinton also.
That came out as well.
So that's coming out as well. That is something that has disturbed Americans. Many people look back at that revelation and say that is exactly what they hate about the insular nature of Washington, D.C. and the so-called swamp that needs to be drained. They hate these special favors.
Yeah, they didn't like that. They were more concerned about the tarmac meeting, not about whether it was corrupt or not, but whether or not they needed to cover it up. Now, let me move on to the tax cut situation. Is this thing going to pass? I know it's like down to the wire right now. And why, if you're a middle-class family with a few kids, how specifically does it help them? I'll give you the last couple seconds.
We are so hopeful, Jesse, that it's going to pass and the president will sign it into law in time for Christmas as he promised. This will help middle America in many ways. Number one, the standard deduction is doubled for everyone. So a married couple watching right now will go from $14,000 to $28,000 of their first income at 0%. The first $28,000, 0%. That's huge.
That's good.
Also, they'll get a reduction in the tax bracket itself, in the rate that they pay on their taxable income. Also, if that couple has children, they will get the child care tax credit expanded, adult dependent tax credit for the first time ever. If they have a mortgage interest, the deduction remains. If they give money to charity, that remains. And so a number of the features that middle-class Americans have told us they rely upon remain. And the other thing is that by reducing the corporate rate from the high of 35% in the developed world to 21% under the average of 23%, that makes us a more competitive nation. We've become uncompetitive and we have penalized American companies from keeping their profits and their jobs here. We're going to bring that back.
So some of the criticism, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, is this favors corporations more than it favors individuals and families. What would you say to that?
It's both of the above. That's coming from folks who didn't bother to read the details, who predicted a year ago when Donald Trump was first elected there'd be the stock market crash. It's got dozens and dozens of record highs. It was at 18,000 when he got elected. It's over 24,000 now. They predicted a global recession. We have the highest consumer confidence rate. We have the lowest unemployment rate among Hispanics ever in our nation's history under this president's watch and leadership. So I would say to those Democrats who couldn't even find it to vote for a massive tax cut for middle Americans, for our job creators, to make us more competitive, they're missing. The train left the station and they didn't hop on it. They're going to have to go home and explain to their job creators, their job holders, and their job seekers why they couldn't see through petty partisan politics and vote for that tax cut. We hope we'll have their votes on other major measures that are happening in 2018.
Well, I hope you guys have the votes on this, because I know the Vice President Pence, I think, delayed his trip to the Middle East just so he could cast that decider. It could come down to the VP's vote, and I think everyone's going to be watching, because I want more money in my pocket because I have a lot of Christmas presents to buy some people.
There you go. And by the way, people just deserve to do that. We had 5 families here with the president at the White House on Wednesday of this week, and each of them took to the podium unscripted, and they went and they told America how they plan to spend the extra money they have in their pockets. A couple of them talked about home renovations, long planned.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can spend money on. There's a lot of great books out there.
But you're right. We have
that you can buy some Waters World paraphernalia if you go online.
Right.
All right, Kelly, and Merry Christmas. I got to run.
Merry Christmas to you, Jesse. All the best.
Thank you. More evidence that the FBI investigation into Hillary was just as crooked as she was. As we've been reporting, FBI Director James Comey drafted an exoneration letter for Hillary before the Bureau even interviewed her. And guess who did the interview? Peter Strzok, the Trump-hating FBI agent who was praising Hillary while he was conducting the so-called investigation. And we got our hands on the letter that Comey wrote, exonerating Hillary, and discovered Peter Strzok himself edited out language that would have made Hillary guilty of a crime. He twice changed how Hillary's actions were characterized, from, quote, gross negligence to, quote, extremely careless. In addition, Comey originally wrote it was reasonably likely that Hillary's server was hacked by America's enemies, but Strzok softened it to it was possible she was hacked, creating doubt about whether Hillary Clinton put national security at risk. Coincidentally, this was President Obama's line as well.
I continue to believe that she has not jeopardized America's national security.
That was a lie. Everybody in the intelligence community believed she was hacked and secrets were stolen. But Hillary was given special treatment by partisan agents, then paid for fake dirt from Russia to smear Trump with. And he's the one being investigated for collusion?
They're spending millions and millions of dollars. There is absolutely no collusion. I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. Everybody knows it. That was a Democrat hoax. It was an excuse for losing the election. But they found tremendous things on the other side. When you look at the Hillary Clinton investigation, it was, I've been saying it for a long time. That was a rigged system, folks. That was a rigged system.
Here with reaction, former deputy assistant to the president and Fox News contributor, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. So, Dr. Gorka, now it's crystal clear that this whole thing was cooked from the jump. And that really struck me was that everybody has been saying for a long time that, we're not really sure if Hillary's emails were hacked by her enemies. Now it looks like Comey himself believed they were probably hacked.
Absolutely. What we have here, Jesse, is we have corrupt cops. It's very clear that this man, Peter Strzok, the former director, James Comey, the current deputy, Andy McCabe, all of these people thought that their favorite candidate, Hillary Clinton, was going to become president. That's why it wasn't just kid gloves that Strzok used in the Servergate investigation. Think of what he did. The FBI, during that investigation, destroyed the evidence, the laptops. They destroyed it, not Hillary. And the FBI did.
And you know who Mueller, the special counsel, hired as part of his investigative team against Trump? The lawyer who represented Hillary's IT guy that destroyed her devices with a hammer. So it all comes full circle. You say that they were motivated to downplay the severity of the charges against Hillary because you thought maybe they expected her to win, so maybe they would still have jobs? Is that what maybe you're saying?
Well, look, they knew that they were feathering their own nest for the future. When the New York Times told everyone that Hillary has a 92% chance of defeating Donald Trump, then these bent, corrupt, politically motivated individuals who wear the FBI badge, Jesse, they said, we've got to make sure Hillary skates through. We've got to cook the books. We've got to allow one of the suspects in the Servergate to actually represent Hillary at those interviews. We're not going to tape the interviews. And then we get that moment when Peter Strzok cooks the books for Comey and drafts that memo that says, before we have the final decision, we're going to exonerate her. That's what happens in a banana republic. And you know what's really scary, Jesse?
What?
Where is Peter now? Where is Peter Strzok?
He's in some HR job over at the FBI.
Right. He hasn't been suspended. They haven't taken his badge. They haven't taken his gun. He is in the HR department where he can hide all kinds of stuff. He can downplay. He can massage documents about other people's political backgrounds.
You're exactly right. He has access to critical documents within the Bureau. Is this the guy we're supposed to trust to have access to these documents? I'm not so sure. I saw something the other day, Dr. Gorka, and I couldn't believe it. It's from the National Review, and here's the headline. What if America won a war and no one cared? They're talking about the allies who've defeated the ISIS caliphate in Iraq and a lot of Syria. This has happened. Donald Trump has bombed the hell out of ISIS. They're running scared and scattered, and it's not being reported. Imagine if Obama and his military with his allies had destroyed ISIS. They would have been having parades and specials all over the television.
Jesse, two years ago, go back 2 years, okay? We had been told by Obama that this is a generational conflict. Our children, our grandchildren will be fighting these jihadis. Back then, ISIS, which had been a little sister organization of Al-Qaeda, had established a caliphate in multiple countries. It had affiliates in 18 countries. According to the Financial Times, it was making $2 million a day from kidnapping, oil sales, you name it. And then I guess the Trump administration has managed to crush a generation down into a month.
Well, listen, the war on terror is not over, but the entire battlefield has been eliminated in terms of the caliphate in Iraq and Syria. And I don't think that Donald Trump's gotten any credit because he was the one that loosened the rules of engagement. He was the one that put the heavy pressure on the enemy. And exactly what he said was going to happen happened. And the stock market's through the roof. ISIS caliphate's destroyed. I mean, that's not a bad first year if you don't count anything else. I'll give you the last word.
He's crushing it. Look at one thing. This is the first jihadi organization since 1924, since when the last caliphate was dissolved, that has succeeded to create a new one. When Steve Bannon and I were in the office in the West Wing, we had one objective above all else, to make sure the physical caliphate is destroyed. Jesse, it's already gone.
All right. Well, that's good news. And Merry Christmas. Maybe that was the present
Christmas
we were going to deliver to the jihadis. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Oh, Angela.
Oh, bye,
Angela.
girl.
Oh,
bye.
Angela.
But bye, honey. You have never represented the community. You are skin folk. We don't own you like Zora. Goodbye. Good riddance. Goodbye. Deuces.
Angela.
She said to me, I hope you find some joy in your life. Well, today I have found it.
You've just been so nasty to so many women, and so many women of color.
So she said she has a story to tell, and I'm sure she'll be selling that story.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, she will. Bye, Felicia.
Mainstream media is celebrating the firing of apprentice villain Omarosa from the White House. A lot of controversy whether she was physically escorted out by security even. She spoke to ABC News saying that's not true and actually played the race card.
As the only African-American woman in this White House, as a senior staff and assistant to the president, I have seen things that have made me uncomfortable, that have upset me, that have affected me deeply and emotionally, that has affected my community.
Omarosa says she plans on writing a tell-all about how she was treated as a black woman in the White House. Joining me now, someone all too familiar with these tactics, former White House press secretary Sean Spicer. So, Sean, I hate to ask you about Omarosa, but I mean, it's blowing up all over the place. What was the truth about that whole situation, and what was your experience with her?
Well, I'm not really privy to what actually went down. I know that she's decided to move on, and General Kelly and her came to some kind of agreement, and it sounds like that's in the best interest of everybody involved. Omarosa worked for the Office of Public Liaison, which didn't fall under my purview, so I wasn't really privy to what she did in and out every day. My understanding was that office is tasked with doing outreach to the various communities and coalitions that help move the president's agenda along and help inform the White House about issues that are important to the the American people.
Yeah, I took it as kind of a threat when she said, well, I've heard things and I've seen things and I've witnessed things as a black woman in the Trump White House that made me very uncomfortable, and soon I'm going to write a book about it. Isn't that how you perceived it?
It definitely came across that way, and I hope that if she did feel uncomfortable or was anything that she found inappropriate, that she reported it to the Office of Administration or to Human Resources or whomever at the time that was the appropriate venue. It's not appropriate at the end on your way out the door to kind of kick everyone and say, I'm going to use the privilege and trust that was given to me to do a tell-all. I think that's really betraying the trust that the president in particular has placed in his senior staff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I'm not sure how the media is going to handle this tell-all, because when the president brought her into the White House, a black woman, they mocked it for her being some sort of a joke. And then when the black woman was fired from the Trump White House, then all of a sudden the White House lacks diversity. So whatever the president does, he's always going to get hammered on. And this goes to the next point I want to bring up. A new study that says the last 3 months, 90% of the mainstream media's coverage on the nightly news of Donald Trump has been negative. I think that's even too low. I think it's going to be even worse.
I want to see the 10%.
I know. Where was that? I mean, come on. 90%, and it was 90% the first 100 days, 90% in the summer. At least they're consistently biased, Sean.
Right. I mean, I don't think it should come into any shock. Any of us who've been in conservative politics for a while understand that this is a pattern, but I think they've taken it to a new height with this president. There is a desire not to make sure that credit is given when credit is due. You look at the regulatory impact that this president has had on business growth, on economic growth, and on jobs. Very little of any coverage to give him the credit that he's due on this, and the climate that he's instilled within the business community. And in so many other fronts, it's always why he's not going to succeed, what went wrong, as opposed to highlighting to any degree the successes that the president's had, the team that he has around him, the initiatives that he's undertaken. But there's a lot of good that's happening in this administration, and I think, frankly, people, this is why there's a lack of trust in the media. This is why I've talked about writing a book about my experiences, because I think so often that there's a narrative that gets portrayed about what's happening that doesn't match the reality of what's happening.
Well, because we just talked about it with Gorka before you. He's defeated ISIS in the Middle East, no more caliphate, and the stock market's at a record high. Yet he doesn't get any credit for those major victories, and then they seize on these tiny little things. So you're writing this book about your experience, and that's going to be out in the summer. Can you point me to some examples about when you were at the White House as a press secretary and you're interacting with these people, not all the time on camera, but off camera? What was the sense of that you got of them personally about how they felt personally about the President of the United States?
Well, there's no question, Jesse, that a number of these individuals personally don't like him, don't like his style, don't like that he defeated Hillary Clinton.
Is it a style thing, or is it all politics, do you think? Because he does have a unique style.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think, generally speaking, there's an immediate liberal bias that they have. But I think with this president in particular, he doesn't view them with the same level of entitlement that they feel that they deserve, that they may have necessarily received. And I think that's one of the big differences that we see in the press corps more and more, is this level of entitlement, this level of not having to ever apologize for being wrong or calling out each other.
Because he doesn't fawn over them the way typical politicians do, and doesn't cater to them, and doesn't expect everything they do to be perfect. He challenges them when he feels they need to be challenged, and that's probably what creates so much tension, because they've been getting a free ride for so many years. Now, Sean, I know you have a lot of writing to do, so I'm going to have to let you go, but Merry Christmas, okay?
Merry Christmas, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. And later, the Bros going to be in Waters World.
What up, Council? My name is Chad Kroger.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Molly Line. The Thomas Fire in Southern California turned Santa Barbara into a virtual ghost town Saturday. The fire is being fueled by gusty winds and forcing more evacuations. The fire also heading for the wealthy enclave of Montecito, home to celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, and many others. 8,300 firefighters from a dozen states are battling the blaze, which began December 4th. It has now consumed 404 square miles. Its cause still under investigation. In Israel, Palestinian protests are picking up. Israeli security forces using stun grenades today on protesters in Jerusalem. Friday, 4 Palestinians were killed and dozens injured in clashes with Israeli on the West Bank near the border with Gaza. I'm Molly Line. Now back to Waters World.
Bon appetit.
Eating meat creates toxic masculinity, according to a university professor. Eating meat is bad for you, it's bad for the country, and it reinforces gender stereotypes, apparently. Yeah. But it tastes so good. Joining me now, Dr. D'Alessio Parson. Okay, doctor. Why is eating meat bad, really?
Well, we have to back up, because you, I think at the beginning, just said eating meat creates toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. Toxic masculinity is already there.
It's already there. Does eating meat make toxic masculinity worse?
It's one of the ways in which it can reinforce existing kind of social structures, including patriarchy.
Well, how does that reinforce social structures where men dominate eating meat?
Yeah, it's really complicated. And
We'll
you said
break it down for a,
How about this, though? You said we had 4 or 5 minutes, right?
Just keep it simple. How does eating meat make the genders unequal?
Eating meat holds a lot of symbolism, and it really is too much to explain in 4 minutes. But it has to do with the fact that our individual level decisions, the things we decide to do as individuals, what we consume, what we put on our bodies, the things we buy and put in our households, are fundamentally political acts.
Okay.
Right? The personal is political.
Okay. So I'm having a steak right now because I'm starving.
I hear you. I wish I could have half of that, but this doesn't look vegan, and I'm trying to be vegan.
You're a vegan?
It's really hard because I don't know if I told you I'm from Wisconsin.
Okay.
And cheese was like one of my favorite things.
See, that looks pretty good. That's a little rare, medium rare.
Yeah.
Is
got
this
some nice dead animal, dead cow hanging on your fork?
Is this bad that I'm eating meat?
If you go hunting, that's a totally different story, right? The blood's on your hands. Right now, you're kind of just enjoying the benefit, and the blood's on someone else's hands, and that's not very fair.
What if they want to hunt meat, or what if they want to raise cattle?
Oh, totally. But the idea of killing and taking a life, that we should really deeply consider what that means for us as human beings. You know, people have said you should judge a society by how it treats their animals. And we, you know, it'd be great if we had universal health care for our animals.
Universal health care for animals, that could be expensive.
We can afford it. Look.
Really? Because we're $20 trillion in debt.
I got some money.
Do you care more about people or animals?
I care about our world, and I think in order for us to achieve a more sustainable future, particularly regarding what's happening with climate change, we need to figure out how the 7.6 billion of us on this planet can be good neighbors. And we're really bad at being good neighbors right now.
Okay, so like, why should I be a good neighbor to a squirrel?
Well, you don't have to worry about, if you don't want to worry too much about the squirrel right now, the squirrel's part of nature, right? If you keep killing nature, what's going to happen to us, right? If we as people keep killing nature. Me too, right? Like, I still eat cheese a lot. It's not like something that's going to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect at it.
But what if you're just hungry and the animals are there for us to enjoy for dinner, for lunch,
because God said
for breakfast?
So. Did God tell you that?
Well, I mean, why would they taste so good if we weren't supposed to eat them?
Sugar tastes good.
Yeah, I eat sugar too.
Obesity, diabetes.
Well, I mean, I have some sugar, but
I mean, you clearly have a lot.
I don't just pour sugar down my throat.
You clearly have some things around like who you are that protect you, and like especially a lot of, I think, financial resources to like do things like buy really expensive steaks.
Okay.
So that's also part of the problem, is that some people are really taking up more than their fair share of, you know, plate.
The rich people are stealing all the steak from the poor people.
Surplus value.
Okay, well, you know what?
I got a book for you.
I'm going to go take this steak and I'm going to go give it to a homeless guy out on 6th Avenue.
Go for it. And you were saying you needed books for Christmas.
Thank you very much. I will take your book and I will take a bite of the steak.
And this is the book I'm reading.
And it's delicious. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. You might not be able to drink liquor on a plane anymore.
That'd be too bad.
People can't hold their liquor, and when they fly, here's what happens.
Someone help! This guy's crazy! Help! I'll kill you.
And then the flight attendants have to act like bouncers.
I don't want to take a seat.
I don't care what you want to do. You're going to take a seat right now.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to move.
Sit down. Sit down. Enough. You don't put your hands on my flight attendant.
Wow. So our airline's about to ban booze. And for that, we turn to former flight attendant and creator of Passenger Shaming on Instagram, Sean Kathleen, and Katie Freites, who is managing editor at Olympic Media and a frequent flyer. Sean Kathleen, I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? Is this getting worse, and is booze to blame?
Booze is definitely a portion of what we can blame that behavior of, and yes, I have seen it. I was a flight attendant for 7 years. It happens.
What was the nastiest thing you ever witnessed as a flight attendant?
Nastiest was probably the person who caught their hair on fire while they were smoking crack cocaine in the lavatory, so that actually happened.
Was that Marion Barry? God rest his soul, but I mean, that is just ridiculous. Katie, do they need to do this? Do they need to go that far to ban booze? Or are you just going to have to, this just, comes with the territory?
I don't think they need to take any measures. I think social media and viral videos tend to make things seem a lot worse than they actually are. There were millions of passengers and tens of millions of flights last year, and statistically, the amount of incidents that are occurring with alcohol are pretty darn small when you look at it. Also, flying sucks. You have to deal with the TSA, you have to deal with the airport. When you finally get to your plane, you sit in a seat that you can barely fit into that costs you more and more every year. They nickel and dime you, and you're inevitably surrounded by someone with a screaming baby or who coughs and sneezes the whole time and gets you sick. And I personally think taking away alcohol from people on flights is cruel and unusual punishment.
I agree with that. I mean, it depends if you fly first class or not, though. So you can see the statistics. They do bear out that the amount of these crazy incidences have gone up. I don't know whether that's because people are drinking more. The left will probably blame that on Donald Trump being president. Who knows? But Sean, Kathleen, what are airline attendants supposed to do when the passengers have had 6 or 7 cocktails and they start standing up and acting crazy?
Well, you shouldn't get to the point of serving somebody 7 cocktails. The federal aviation regulations that are, from the FAA, as you know, you can't board an aircraft while intoxicated. Moreover,
sometimes it's hard for people to tell if I'm intoxicated when I'm boarding an airplane.
Which is, yeah, absolutely, which is totally cool. That's okay. It's okay if we can't tell. But if you're belligerent, obviously it's a safety issue. So when you're at 35,000 feet, we don't want somebody becoming belligerent and angry. And then, as you mentioned, then the flight attendants are the only ones there. It's not like we can call a manager,
Well, it looks like
security.
one of those flight attendants actually had to tackle the guy. And he's like, put your hands down. I'm a flight attendant. He sounded like a police officer. Are these guys deputized to, take physical action?
Well, no, I'm actually a former police officer myself, as well as a former flight attendant. But yes, they are trained, and there's a large security issue because obviously, safety of the passengers is what it's about, number one, and comfort does come after that.
Yeah.
As far as
let me ask you,
sometimes
Katie.
You gotta tackle them.
Let me ask Katie. Remember the movie Bridesmaids when I think she took a pill and then she had too much wine, or I think she had something, whiskey, and she just barges into first class and starts singing and harassing people and. Have you ever witnessed that? And how, as a passenger, would you handle that?
No, so thankfully, I've never experienced anything like that. I do travel a lot. I was just back and forth to LA. I'm going back and forth to LA this Sunday. I've seen more instances of medical emergencies than I've ever seen someone, having one too many. But
medical emergencies, you got to do, is there a doctor on board?
Well,
that's
right.
the play.
And look,
but listen, no, Katie, we got to go. That's the play. And I wish you guys a Merry Christmas and don't drink too much on the flights, okay?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great holiday.
Still ahead, House Party Bros fighting City Hall.
House parties were the bedrock of my development as a young man in San Clemente. What up, Council? My name is Chad Kroger. I'm an activist and house party enthusiast. Over the past week, I've been in a state of deep despair upon hearing the news that LA is trying to outlaw house parties in the Hollywood Hills. I am here determined to stop this future atrocity. House parties were the bedrock of my development as a young man in San Clemente. My first introduction to manhood came when the captain of my water polo team, Boomer Kingsley, asked me to shotgun a tall can of Bud Light in front of the whole squad at his end of the season bash. His parents were in Tahoe at the time, so we tore that weekend up. It was epic, and I was super stoked. My newfound confidence gave me the courage to ask out the most popular girl in school, Lauren Stockholder, to prom that year. She rejected me, and I had to go with Stacey McMillan. But I didn't care because I was so amped on chugging with my boys. That's what house parties do. Raging at house parties is the truest way to party.
Next, LA's version of Bill and Ted, please come forward.
We both went to this party at Benji's, and it looked like it was going to be a serious flop. His dad wouldn't bail, and the guy-to-girl ratio was awful.
Chad Kroeger and JT Parr, the house party enthusiast pros, join me now. So, guys, what's LA trying to do? Why are they trying to crack down on house parties? What's going on?
Well, apparently they want to put the crackdown on the house parties in the Hollywood Hills because I guess people were raging a little bit too hard, and they want to put the crackdown. So we came in to step in and let our voices be heard and say, we love raging, we love house parties, we want to keep them around.
So you guys are the Paul Revere for house parties. You're going to warn everybody that the government's coming to crack down, and hopefully everybody rallies. Have people rallied behind you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. The support has been tremendous. I think one thing, we tried to unify people to get behind this cause, and it seemed to have really worked. So we're stoked on that, sir.
Has the LA City Council said anything? Have they done anything? Are they taking you guys seriously, do you think, or do they think you guys are a joke?
I think they take us seriously. I think they're stoked to see us. I think they're stoked to see our passion for raging. JT?
I mean, I think initially they wanted to dismiss us, but then when they saw how passionate and thorough our kind of arguments were, they realized we were kind of like, not to be like braggy, but like a force to be reckoned with.
For sure.
Yeah, you guys are a force, that's for sure. When you guys do party, what's like the regular Saturday night? What's that look like for you guys?
Usually it starts with like a group text to all the boys, say, hey guys, we're raging tonight, where's the locale? We pick up, usually a 6 or at least, probably a 30 rack.
Sure. Yeah.
30 rack, and we determine how exactly we're going to go about.
There's stages to it. Like, you get your tightest crew together, and you kind of decide what's going to be the tempo for the rest of the night. And then once we've got kind of properly warmed up, we go always as a unit to a party or to a bar and occasionally a club, but that's not really our steez. And then we just try to rage and try to make some good memories that we can hold on to.
Exactly.
All right.
Try to form good memories with the squad.
Okay. Are you passionate about anything else, or is just the house party scene, that's what it's all about?
We love house parties. We also are passionate about Paul Walker. That's kind of our hero.
Yeah.
We've also petitioned to build a statue for him.
The actor from Fast and Furious.
To help unify the nation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And we think having passion kind of enlarges me as a person. So Chad and I are both into surfing and weightlifting and dancing and kicking it.
Yeah. All right. Listen, you guys look good. You definitely have gotten your point across. Is this a stunt? Be honest. It's a little bit of a stunt. You guys are comedians or what?
No. It's not a stunt. We're just very passionate about getting out there and just keeping house parties a major staple in the American society.
I mean, we're funny, but we're funny in the service of a greater goal, which is uniting people.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys have united America, and if you need any help with the house party petition,
thank you.
Let me know. Thanks, guys.
Oh, legend, dude.
Thank you so much.
Rage with us, dude.
All right,
Love
a woman
you.
accused of sexual harassment in the workplace. A woman. Last call's next. Time now for last call. It's a woman's turn. A female Democrat has dropped out of her congressional race over claims of sexual harassment. Andrea Ramsey is accused of retaliating against a male subordinate when he rejected her. She's denying it, though. She says it was settled. So the Me Too movement has now come full circle. That's all for us tonight. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Justice with Judge Jeanine is next. And remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.